Willkommen zurück aus der Kaffeepause. Unsere nächste Referentin ist Irit Deckel, die am Jena Center for Reconciliation Studies arbeitet und nicht nur aus diesem Grund, wie wir auch schon gemerkt haben, perfekt Deutsch spricht. Dennoch möchte sie ihren Vortrag auf Englisch halten und wir wechseln jetzt also für den Rest des Workshops ins Englische, was hoffentlich niemandem Probleme bereitet. Und ihr Vortrag ist betitelt Already Broken, Interacting with the New Holocaust Memorials in Berlin.
Vielen Dank, die Einladung und ja, interessante Tagung. Wir können auch später Diskussionen auf Deutsch führen. Es tut mir leid, dass ich jetzt auf Englisch spreche, aber das, ja. So, once or twice a year, the German press rediscovers and discusses cracks in the Holocaust Memorial concrete stele. The topic is particularly popular around the annual anniversaries of the memorial's opening, around since May 2005. They use statements that allude to the history of the site, that the site commemorates or still warns against it. And I'm going to show you a few of those statements. So you can see that the memorial das ist auf Deutsch. Das Denkmal soll aber wesentlich maroder sein. Es ist sick. Yeah, I mean, there is a fear that it will break apart altogether. Und auch the memorial was not built to last forever. I mean, unlike the Reich. Recently, statements by right-wing politicians such as Höcke of the AfD Thüringen about the memorial as a site of German shame merited the same metaphorical reactions, according to which the cracks in German society must also be amended. And Höcke got a memorial of his own by his house, courtesy of the Center for Political Beauty. Uwe Neumerker, managing director of the memorial, the architect Peter Eisenman, as well as the initiator Lea Ross, all assure the public that this is a natural, repairable condition of the stones. I would like to start in thinking about this existential angst in regard to the firmness of Holocaust memory in Germany as a symbol to the firmness of democratic culture and institutions and the protection of memorials on the one hand and of Jews on the other hand. This discussion is based on my research around the years of the memorial opening, so I also did ethnographic anthropological research in the Holocaust Memorial in 2005 and 2006, and then returned in 2010-11, and continued looking at Holocaust memory representation of Jewish life in Germany since. So ever since the early post-war years, remembering the Holocaust was deemed to be a necessary undertaking for the stability of democracy. But it apparently also is a dangerous and endangered one. In today's Germany, it can be threatened by certain minorities that don't remember at all or don't remember correctly, such as Muslims, refugees, and to a lesser extent the new German states of the former GDR. Jews are protected with special means in memorial sites as well as in Jewish institutions where the press presents both their marked existence and their memory as a proof of a normalized society. At a time of heightened nationalistic populism, the search for anti-Semitism limits democratic processes and discussions, as we will see. Moving back and forth from the metaphorical to the actual cracks in society and its memory, the press warns if the memorial is cracked, the safety of visitors is also threatened, as you can see in those discussions. Also in reference to what they choose to do in the Holocaust Memorial, jump between the Stele, play hide and seek and take photos. German Jewish Israeli comedian Shachak Shapira juxtaposed very wrong photos of pleasure and play in the memorial with Holocaust photos. In January 27, 2017, the debate of Holocaust that was called. So metaphorically, we learn memorial can be breakable, or memory can be breakable. It can be harmed by people if they play hide and seek or say it is shameful. It can be harmed by time. The survivors are dying. And nature, as you saw the thermometer of the sick memorial showed in the Getty image. These become subjects of remorse and lament, with the focus on the harm that right extremists and migrants may cause. The new Holocaust Memorial can thus be the site around which we can study the process of objectification of minorities, whereby the subject matter of democracy and democratic culture gets tested and constituted. So this is in dialogue with the earlier presentation of Misha on the question of Erinnerungskultur as an object and as a reference point. The German media, reflecting a discourse on Holocaust memory prevalent after the unification in the 1990s, discusses the Holocaust as an event that primarily happened to Jews and to a growing extent to other minorities. So I'll give you a few examples. In 2017, the Bundestag dedicated its International Holocaust Remembrance Day to the memory of 300,000 victims of the so-called euthanasia killing program of individuals that the Nazis deemed to have mental and physical disabilities. In 2011, it dedicated its Bundestag commemoration to the Roma victims. This discourse on the right pursuit and manifestation of memory highlights that people and their action and thoughts put place and memory of Holocaust in danger. However, quite similar statements in different parts of the memorial, I talk now about the research in the Holocaust Memorial, constitute a desired performance of Holocaust memory, depending on moral positioning toward the task that the discourse set to achieve, that visitors will internalize the need to remember the Jews as German descendants to perpetrators. So again, it corresponds to Misha's work and to others' work on the right sentiment and emotions vis-a-vis Holocaust memory. Do you position yourself in the right emotion toward Holocaust memory? And so many groups can get it wrong or get it right and perform it right. For instance, a statement of high school student, that's for my research, by the security check to the underground, to the Haute Information in the Holocaust Denkmal, said, "Oh, this makes me feel like a Jew," to the guide, not to the guard, but maybe also the guard heard it. And it was a German high school student, and that was deemed by the guide a worthy of police report, while above ground, he said, "Oh, now I need to report you," and then he said, "Jetzt aber Schuss," and left, but maybe in the same group above ground, when the kids are asked, "Well, how do you feel in the memorial?" and they say, "I feel lonely and I feel sad," and then someone would say, "Maybe this is how the Jews felt," as a description of feeling while walking in the Holocaust Memorial, leads to a welcome discussion of the abstract memorial and the meaning of its inward and outward experience. So I suggest that the site and subjects of risk are inherently connected to the discussion of who is remembered, as we also understood from the other talks today, and by whom. Remembered are predominantly the murdered Jews of Europe as potential victims now, by groups whose origins are white Christian Germans. The minorities that the right radicals longs to rid Germany of are presumed to be those who put Jews and Holocaust memory in danger. So in my work, I discuss how the murdered Jews of Europe is a large and rather a historical category. Many times in Europe, Jews were murdered by many different groups, right? To begin with, the other groups are remembered in different time and place designations, as we'll see in a second. So I ask what roles actual living Jews can and do play in this remembrance with other groups, and whether these roles might be subject to change, evenly available for all the groups involved. Okay, so the memorial to homosexuals murdered, persecuted under National Socialism. So here you see a time reference in the name of the memorial, run under the same Stiftung Denkmal für die Ermordeten Juden Europas. This was opened in 2008, a stone's thrown away from the Holocaust Memorial, and what its designers, Dragstedt and Elmgreen, called the 2,712 Stele, so the one more. In it, one can see a film of romantic kiss between two men. Actually, the film changes, and that was the first one. The memorial has many accidental visitors whose reactions to it reflect their relations to homosexuality in German society today. And so ethnographies about how people react to the memorial show that either they look away or they seem sympathetic or they show homophobia. In any case, it's connected to some kind of a biographical dimension of memory, because the researchers ask, well, you can be homosexual today, but maybe your forefathers were perpetrators, so can you remember us both, right? Sinti and Roma Memorial, or the official title, Memorial to the Sinti and Roma of Europe murdered under the National Socialist regime. So here you have both the category that we had before the Jews of Europe murdered, but the time under National Socialist regime. Opened in 2012, and I'm showing you here a photo of a memorial event in August 2nd, 2018, on the day of the 74th anniversary of the liquidation of the Auschwitz-Birkenau so-called gypsy camp. This is a memorial designed by Danny Caravan, and where actually memorial events and political events take place, and where we can see that the stigmatization of Roma continues in the site and around it, both in the rules of conduct, the way, I mean, it's said that it's not allowed to beg for money there, in the rules of behavior outside the memorial. And also in articles in the press. I mean, I'll give you an example. In May 24th, 2016, Roma members demonstrated at the memorial against the threat to deport them, because many of them don't get Flüchtlings or Flüchtling status, and they're deported. They came to the memorial and they sat there, and the police removed them and said that the memorial is not a place for politics. The Taz berichtet. The performance of Holocaust memory is shaped by social processes in which groups articulate their relations to each other and to various pasts as they and other groups see it. Jeff Olick writes about that. In Germany, these are reflected on and take place symbolically in and around Holocaust memorial sites, such as the Holocaust memorials we discuss here, as well as authentic sites where the Holocaust and Nazi terror did so-called take place, and events that we spoke about. The German media often discusses the question whether migrants bring with them or import anti-Semitism from Muslim countries. S.O. Zurek writes about that, and seldom reflect on the social learning that those migrants and citizens could also acquire in Germany, right? If we assume that they get to meet Germans and the schools are not segregated and so forth. With other groups who live here. A sort of litmus test for anti-Semitism repeatedly asked young people what they know or what they think about the Holocaust. So, I mean, you see in the press, if a young Muslim person got to a demonstration, she's asked or he is asked, what do you know about the Holocaust? And they have to come up with an answer. And it should be the right one, which is, it's important to me, I think it's terrible what happened to the Jews, and then they can continue as citizens or non-citizens as subjects. Young Muslims, including those born in Germany, are assumed to put not just the memorials as metaphorical vehicles signifying German society, but also Holocaust memory and Jews themselves in danger. Thus, as we recently saw in a counter-demonstration against Al-Quds Day on June 1st, protecting Jews has become a national mission in Germany. The German parliament appointed diplomat Felix Klein, government commissioner on anti-Semitism and Jewish life, also an interesting category. And there are other such appointments on the level of the Bundesländer. I skip a little part on how important. There is a rise in anti-Semitism since this appointment. I'm not connecting them. There's a 20% rise. And also seeking to see who's performing that, and that didn't change. I mean, the 90 to 95% are white Germans performing anti-Semitic attacks against Jews. The immediate historical context for this discourse is the new anti-Semitism and Holocaust memory within debate about the general health of the German democracy is the so-called refugee crisis of 2015, and we actually discussed that earlier. So Holocaust memory informed, Olaf mentioned that, informed many of the images of the refugees reaching Europe in summer of 2015, and also the Vertreibungsgeschichte. As well as served to ethically ground the call refugee welcome, which was genuine and overreaching in Germany that summer. According to author Esther Dischereit, it was an example of the excorporeality of guilt, perfectly joining together the protection of Jews with the protection and taking of refugees. This welcoming movement also grounded the German empathy with the refugees, with memories of the forced migration of the Vertreibung of ethnic German following the Second World War, and on continuing sense of responsibility and guilt emanating from the Holocaust. But quickly thereafter, one minority, migrant Muslims, was assumed to put another minority, Jews, in danger. Germany's foreign minister, Frank-Walter Steinmeier, told the Conference on Combating Anti-Semitism in March 2016 that integration of the refugees would have to include, I quote, taking the fight against anti-Semitism to heart, because it is clear, as we see it, there is no place and must never be a place for anti-Semitism in a free, democratic, and tolerant Germany, unquote. So we understand that integration in the German society entails taking up fight against anti-Semitism and emotionally investing in it as proof of good conduct with other citizens and non-citizens in Germany. What connects the Holocaust memory, the protection of living Jews today, and its extension to Israel, and Muslims? Dandina suggests that Holocaust memory is a defining element of German Staatsräson. We can look at the space reserved for its performance, again, in relation to the topic of our day today. I claim that Holocaust memory is performed in Germany within a certain national memory atmosphere. It is conducted and constructed by the condensation of time and space around narrative elements that are paramount in telling a historical story that resonates with what visitors and people feel most important in telling and retelling their own stories about the past. National memory atmosphere exists within a melancholic space where various forms of Holocaust remembrance are performed, which view Jews and to an extent other minorities as objects of remembrance by which other groups perform and test belonging to majority culture. Within this atmosphere, remembering the Holocaust, remembering Jews and World War II atrocities, the melancholic becomes lamentable, and the most played role of that are that of victims. Mostly the focus on Jews, but as we see to a growing extent through presenting Germans as victims or through claims of a growing Schuldkult, which mocks this commitment to remembrance together with its moral grounds. Aleida Assmann reminds us that Höcke was not the first one to equate German memory or Holocaust memory to German shame and suffering. Walser was before him and others. Assmann claims that the memorial is a stage on which democracy is played out or takes place, and that this has many faces, also extremist ones. Precisely because this metaphor can describe well the meaning-making process that brings together performing memory and performing democracy, we can ask, does this democracy play have the same number of roles and characters? In other words, and this is a historical question, who is playing the Jews today? Are actual Jews at all needed? Or protection of their visible religiosity or the visibly religious men would suffice? Maybe just cut the kippah out and bastel your own kippah. What about wearing his kippah to show solidarity with his minority by becoming it? Imaginary, objectified Jews are needed in order to remember the Holocaust and the revival and stability of democracy, but also in order to show that there is another threat directed at them and at the German democracy, and in this case, the Muslims, the migrants. So let us look at how Jews are presented in the German media. And I'm going to show you a pretty solid number. So I'm going to show you a few examples. But if you Google Juden in Deutschland, Antisemitismus, Israelis in Deutschland, Geschichte des Judentums in German, you will see photos that look like that. The Jew from the kippah, with the kippah from behind. So this is one example. Finding anti-Semitism is a civic duty, and this is a photo, but it's used overall of a Jew in a demonstration. Usually the wearer of the kippah wears a kippah with the Star of David. It's blue. It reminds us of a flag of a certain country, blue and white. And okay, so this is the Taz, really that photo, right? And actually, the same photo was used in an article that criticizes the way the German press relates and covers this by sociologist Michael Bodemann. Here's another example. This is a Superman or Superwoman with the flag. And Antisemitismusbeauftragte Felix Lein warnt Juden davon, that's before the Kundgebung. And this is, I'm giving you this example, and I'll go forward. With those photos in mind, I like to return to the national memory atmosphere. As it is used primarily, the division of victims and victimizers, but not perpetrators. Jews are strangers to this body politic. I mean, this person has no face, and they can't look back. Strangers to be protected by properly remembering white Germans. Within this atmosphere, protecting the Jews also entails loving them. I would now like to connect the discussion of Holocaust memory through the concept of national memory atmosphere to Philo-Semitism, a phenomenon that generates the objectification of Jews as a group, a condition it shares with its putative opposite, anti-Semitism. So studying Philosemitism is also a lens through which to observe a larger understanding of social, national, and post-national projects of exclusion and inclusion. I think this is... Yeah, oh, sorry, I missed one. But this is the most iconic photo of the Jew with the kippah from the back, watching the state, basically, watching Brandenburger Tor. And that was about Israelis in Berlin, and that was, die Stadt macht einen zum Juden. So you come as an Israel and you live like a Jew. Also, Eisenman used to say that. I came as an American with my cup, and I live as a Jew when I come to design the Holocaust Memorial. Okay, Philo-Semitism. The literature on Philo-Semitism often discusses it together with anti-Semitism insofar as both portray the Jew as an other, and stresses that the former is not antithetical to the latter. Lasner and Rubovich define it as any action or sentiment directed in favor of Jews, marking the ambivalent relations between the two. Zygmunt Bauman calls the ambivalence allo-Semitism, which, quote, can embrace both positive and negative feelings toward Jews. Allo-Semitism originates from allos, one of the two German terms, Greek terms for other, one which suggests a distant other, an other that is over there or beside the point. Chiefly, an other not in relation to the same, in contrast to the heteros, the other Greek term for other, which intimates a concrete other in relation. Bauman's choice of neologism thus connects xenophobia and xenophilia. As a cultural phenomenon, Philo-Semitism is often enlarged to other domains where Jews are thought to exclusively belong, like Israel, and the analysis that relate it to the nation state, in which, for instance, so-called Germans need Jews in order to be considered normalized. The fear of Jews being attacked or feeling unsafe after the Holocaust is central to the work of Philo-Semitism in Germany. Considered thought and daily enactment of loving Jews as others who can be in danger from external as well as internal groups is routinely performed toward the accomplishment of civility. I'll now explore the performance of Philo-Semitism in the German society and its agents, symbols, and subject positions. So let's talk about how I see Philo-Semitism. We have, now I'll be the sociologist, we have an institutional level first. Here the discussion is of inherent anti-Semitism, and it's newly introduced through the old categories of Judenhass, Jews hate, and xenophobia. It is pre-modern, I mean the history of talking about Judenhass is pre-modern, primordial, and separates the Semitic traditions from each other. It is often directed toward newcomers so as to give them the mechanics of the accomplishment accepted to be known and performed by German citizens. Then we have a group level. And here we see the contingency of the movement between Philo-Semitism and anti-Semitism. In this section, I explore images in which Jews are depicted and marked in their religious visibility, and where relations with them are discussed. So we started discussing it when we spoke about showing Jews in the German media. And then there is the individual level. The most habitual of the performance is of not knowing enough about Jews, or lack of some mastery, presumably expected, in which individuals disclose embarrassment in regards to things Jewish, connecting the elusive category of the Jew. What if we don't see the kippah of the Jew from the back, or if you're looking at a Jewish woman and she has a face, and she doesn't seem religious, and the discourse on guilt and shame. So it connects both. It has a specific mechanism that is disclosed with its modes of operations. So I want to talk shortly now about safety for the Jews and for democracy. So the institutional level of Philo-Semitism. On the institutional level, the focus is on whether Jews can feel safe in German society today. And I cannot tell you how many times I was asked whether I feel safe. And you can ask me what I said later. The question is of inherent or latent anti-Semitism, and it gets newly introduced through all categories, as we said, such as Judenhass. German politicians declare time and again their commitment to Jewish life in Germany and see their support of Israel as a relationship of mutual dependence. And of course, this has historical justifications. This ambivalence around whether Jews are part of the German society, as we already heard, and what kinds of subjects they are, is crucial to our understanding of Philo-Semitism. This protective commitment marks Jews as others, as in the following example from Angela Merkel's speech in a demonstration, Steh auf, nie wieder Judenhass, in September 2014. So you can read the quote both of Deutsch and in English. The us is Germans, and Germans own Jewish life and are defined by it, as it is part of their identity. Jews even constitute a German Heimat now, together with all other people that live in it. So it's more inclusionary or inviting in this sense. Since the parliamentary elections in 2017, special positions, as we said, were created on federal and local levels to protect Jewish life and fight anti-Semitism. Okay, we'll go back to this. On the group level, I'll get to it. The group level, the focus is on rituals and faith, willy-nilly about visibility. So here we may recognize the contingency or even codependence of Philo-Semitism and anti-Semitism, which is constituted through interactions among Jews, with them, and between them and other minorities. On this level, others are presented both as potential threats and potential victims, of which Michael Bonham and Gotcha Yudakul write. Michael Rothberg and Yasemin Yildiz show how memory performance is grounds for citizenship and belonging in transnational Europe, where, according to Matti Butzel, it is used to safeguard transnational Europe. As they are presented and viewed in the German media, Jews undergo temporal displacement, whereby their subject position as possible roles, both in remembering and in being remembered, are limited, meaning both that their subjectivity as participants in the public sphere is tied to specific roles, times and spaces, and that intersubjective communication about their representation is restricted, as Max Czolek and others also attest in their work on disintegration in the Gorky Theater. I want to talk about visibility and the technique of seeing and ownership. As we heard from Merkel's speech, and you can still see it, at the demonstration against Jews' hate, as well as in numerous German newspaper articles, questions concerning the safety of Jews in Germany, as well as their visibility and religiosity, unite a gaze on Jews as immanent others to the German body politic. At the same time, as my ethnographic study in museums in Berlin and the Haus der Geschichte in Bonn revealed, this gaze confirms that this particular Jew is not in danger. So when you look at the Jew with the kippah from the back, nothing happens to them. And in fact, I can tell you when I published on that in a piece called Subjects of Memory in the PIM, I interviewed people in an exhibition in Bonn, which was called Drei Fotografen sehen Deutschland, and it was basically three photographers photographed Jews. And there was a lot of Jew with the kippah from behind. And I asked visitors there, what do you see? And the most, so I did some walking tours with people that were willing to talk to me, a few minutes. Anyone socialized in Germany said, es ist ganz normal. And then I asked, oh, what's normal? And then they said, nothing happens to them. They're not unsafe. They can walk in Frankfurt in the open. Okay, so I learned. I mean, without asking, without doing this, you seem surprised. The gaze actually constitutes a safe Jew, not a Jew with a face. And that is the gaze that is activated when we look at those German press Mitteilungen. Whenever you see the Jew with the kippah from behind, I would suggest. So at the same time, as I see in those in those museums, Jews also become signifiers of looming danger to the German body politic if it looks like they might be in danger. So whenever I look at a Jew who's not in danger, democracy is safe. On the individual level, the most habitual, as we said, is the performance of not knowing, in which individuals disclose embarrassment and curiosity in regards to things Jewish. Jews feeling safe in Germany, said Joschka Fischer, on the occasion of receiving the Leo Baeck Prize in 2004, is a sign of German normality and a safeguard to its democracy. The discourse on guilt and shame turns into responsibility, we know since the 80s, toward Jews in Germany and for the existence of Israel. Within this double commitment, disclosing that one does not know enough about Jews is then presented in the German media through getting to know more about religious practices. And indeed, in the Jewish Museum Berlin, being an institutional help that helps the public to know what they have already wanted to ask, there was an exhibition in 2013, Die ganze Wahrheit, everything you ever wanted to know about Jews and didn't dare to ask. Within this tension of the multifaceted question of visibility and recognition, I claim that Philo-Semitism, to say it again, is a routine accomplishment expected to be performed by people living in Germany, including Jews. It is a mechanism that produces, mediates, and maintains the otherness of Jews as protected and celebrated in the German public sphere. The performance on the individual level connects the elusive category of the Jew and the question committed to democracy of others who might hate Jews openly. What you're doing alone in front of TV doesn't matter here. Or to your co-workers or so on. I use the term routine historically as well as analytically. We just have to recapitulate. Historically, Muslims, Romani, people of color, and migrants in Germany experienced routine marginalization and developed techniques to deal with it on the everyday basis, whether through a form of consciousness in which they're better, more equipped, as we heard Deutsch Plus or Plus Deutsch, and those techniques are then reacted to and celebrated. As Diller claims in the post-war connection between nation, migration, and memory, Jews and Muslims can hardly neutralize the political validity of their ethno-religious origins and become equal members of a society because of the rigid regime of memory that can mainly include the descendants of the perpetrators. I want to finish by talking about the freedom of memory and speaking openly. So this was the title of a piece, of a cover piece in the Tagesspiegel in May 2015 with this photo. I mean, it was in bloom. On May 4, 2015, the 10th anniversary ceremony for the opening of the Holocaust Memorial in Berlin, the Tagesspiegel ran this cover article, whose title was The Soul of the Stones, and the subtitle was The Freedom of Remembrance. And you can read das Leben des Alten Kurivos, alles funktioniert. Okay, moving from the visible through the invisible to the unspeakable, you see how unverbal this is, can illustrate the categories at work here. It seems to be anti-Semitism culminating in the Holocaust merits the status of taboo. It is precisely this status that enables discussion of it with minimal changes to everyday experience, which forms its authority and enables a discourse of liberation from taboo, right? The freedom of remembrance. Between the metaphorical ruminations of unorchestrated, repeated action, right? You can keep doing the Leben des Alten Kurivos, the public memorial site where those actions are made possible. The journalist thinks of the mechanics, right? It's funktioniert, of this assembly. It is something that is not mere background and that could not be foreseen or determined by the power to define, imagine, or interpret and participate in German memory work today. They elaborate not merely on the action, but on the atmosphere within which or with which they and we could make sense of this complex of practices, knowledge, and the shared meaning, which culminates in what the Tagesspiegel calls die Freiheit des Gedenkens. This last statement can and has been voiced also about the memorial, and I would agree, if we want to understand it beyond the many negatives that it holds, on how unfree we actually are when we think of the Holocaust. And this action is now celebrated as non-verbal. We need to consider the concept of national memory atmosphere. So I want to conclude. This presentation aimed to connect modes of Holocaust memory performance in new Holocaust memorials, its interpretation within a melancholic national memory atmosphere that connects protecting Jews to protecting democracy, and how, within this atmosphere, Philo-Semitism marks Jews as objects of protection and remembrance, and as proof of the danger posed to them and to democracy by other minorities, predominantly Muslims. I have argued that Philo-Semitism is manifested on three levels, each with its own normative focus, namely the institutional level, where the focus is on safety, the group level, where it is on visibility, and on the individual level, where it is about knowing and speaking with authority about the Jews. This last problem of knowing and talking about Jews pointed to the systemic avoidance of addressing Jews as equal, responsible subjects in the German public sphere. To be sure, Jews in Germany are not excluded from the performative realm of Holocaust memory. We are honored guests in it, standing firm by the few remaining survivors in representing the victims and victimhood writ large, and together embody the memory of the murdered Jews of the Holocaust. In other words, if we look at the genuine commitment to Jewish life in Germany expressed by Angela Merkel, together with the freedom of remembrance trope, and everything that the man with the kippah from the back shows and hides, we get closer to understanding the mechanics of German routine accomplishment of civility as situated within a complex and shifting open cityscape, right, looking at the Brandenburger Tor. This mise-en-scène contains Muslims that put Jews in danger, white Christians, Germans,